So my name is Soenke Zehle. I teach at Saarland University and the Saar Academy of Fine Arts with an emphasis on media theory. And right now I'm in the process of setting up an experimental media lab which draws heavily on debates I've been having with my colleagues about the future of institutions in the cultural field.
Sounds great. You've been here in the Culturemondo roundtable session about new business models. So, and you opened your speech, it was quite interesting, with giving us a picture, an image of Avatar, the Avatar movie, as an example to describe the cloud.
Avatar was, no matter what you say about its simplistic kind of moralistic narrative, is a benchmark in several kinds of ways. I think on the one hand, it's interesting because it has defined the state of the art in terms of cloud-based filmmaking and digital production. But what's more interesting to me actually is that the tremendous commercial success of this film, only partially I think explainable by James Cameron's marketing genius, is because it taps into a profound ambivalence that exists about the future of technological innovation and the widespread desire to somehow withdraw into a world that's less materialistic, less technology-driven, more common-spaced, closer to nature, and somehow controlled by collectives rather than corporations. And I think it describes the juncture we're at. And I also think that cultural actors somehow need to position themselves at this juncture much more vocally and much more aggressively, perhaps, than they have so far. You know, technological development at the moment is tending towards decentralization. We shouldn't take that for granted because it may not last. This is the last phase really of a client-server model of technological relation that was established a long time ago. Initially designed to transform the web from an end-to-end infrastructure into something much more centralized. And cloud culture is now putting us at the margins, us and our smart gadgets at the margins of the cloud. And we have to figure out what to do there, because I think that the veneer of remix culture aided by new types of licenses and so forth only partially gets to the heart of this new infrastructural conflict, which is really about the autonomy to act and the authority to act on the level of the infrastructure itself and not just the remixing of cultural expression.
Mm-hmm. You had in your speech, you had another nice metaphor or soul work. What do you mean with this? What is the soul?
Well, the idea of soul work, the idea of the soul obviously is not a secular idea, but it has been revived by political theorists to say that in a way, when we talk about the intensity of communication and information processes today, what we kind of fail to grasp is the dimension to which it is holistic, both involving us mentally, corporally, and so forth. Basically what it means is that where we used to think that the world of immaterial labor is a liberation from the factory, from the drudgery of routine work and so forth, it has in fact engulfed us in a cycle of cultural production that is getting ever more enmeshed with the way we relate to ourselves and to others, to the extent that the means of production, the means of creation are the means of how we relate to ourselves and to others. So it's really become an issue not just of technology but of our soul. Mm-hmm. And the reclaiming of this autonomy is a complicated affair, but this is a good time to be thinking about it.
Tell us a little bit about the ecological dimension of the cloud. You were raising this in your speech as well, and it's closely linked.
It's closely linked. In the green IT debate, which has been going on, I think, for a good 10 years now, the primary emphasis is on the energy efficiency of servers, of data centers, and this is also an argument that has dominated the debate on the cloud, is that the cloud is good because it'll be energy efficient, which is true. Most of our desktop computers have oversized power supplies and so forth. What we don't talk about is the fundamental efficiency itself of the client-server infrastructure. That even though the servers may become energy efficient, the clients certainly are not, because the very business models that drive cloud computing depend on the planned obsolescence of today's gadgets. So, every time we introduce a new service, we're likely to need a new technological gadget to actually link ourselves to this iteration of the cloud. And the ecological impact of increasingly disposable electronic gadgets is fantastically huge. And it ranges from resource conflicts all over the world to work and safety issues at the places of manufacturing, to the issues of disposing of these things safely once they've gone out of use. And right now, we haven't really figured out to get a handle on this at all. We're getting the resources wherever we can, regardless of their political consequences. We're producing them at the lowest cost, basically regardless of the health and safety implications for the people who make them. And we're dumping our old devices across the world with very rarely giving any thought to whether these places are actually equipped to handle that kind of toxic waste.
We said that we should reclaim the authority to act, and you explained this. So what would be your call? What would you say? What could somebody do as an individual cultural operator, somebody from the cultural field, whatever he's doing? What could this person do actively? What should he or she do?
I think the first thing to say is that maybe the time for models is over. That even though we have this tremendous impulse towards a homogenization of the cultural sector in the face of this rise of the creative industries framework, now we're all part of the creative industry. At the same time, what's becoming increasingly aware is that the heterogeneity of this sector can not really be subsumed under a single model, be it a business model or an educational model or any other kind of organizational model. And so the first thing, I guess, is to acknowledge the singularity of the effort in question. But then to realize, I think, is that the solutions will be both local and transnational at the same time. I think this is the experience that actors who have engaged in this kind of development have made, is that this is not an either-or proposition. Either we serve a local community or we open ourselves up to a transnational public. But my first recommendation would be, if I even could make one, I'm making this because this is what I will be doing in the near future, is to make very specific demands of local policymakers to please address the actuality of how we communicate and create culture today. Because there's no reason why we should be agreeing to live with funding models and models of political regulation that have really not been designed with this actuality in mind. And increasingly I find that the neglect of this policy register is perhaps one of the reasons to account for the slowness of the change in the culture sector.